Greetings, Mindcrafters, and welcome to another exciting discussion today. At least I hope you think it is. I definitely love this topic. And anyway, Mindcraft is about becoming the boss of your brain, taking charge of the cabeza. That is the whole thing. And my name is Kimberly Quinn, and it is my pleasure today to discuss living in your frame. And for many of us, it may be a return to the frame, which is certainly true for me. So, you know, it's like when we're little kids, we have this inherent, you know, like, I used to call it a space bubble, I think, when I was little. Like, it's kind of like if somebody gets too close to you, like, physically wise. I don't even mean being aggressive or even intentionally, but it's just, and you just kind of naturally back up because there's a, kind of like this force field of boundary that's naturally between your energy and someone else's energy. And when bad stuff happens to us, I mean specifically trauma, but anywhere from big stress to trauma, that boundary, especially with sexual abuse, I think it's true for any kind of violation, but especially for sexual abuse, that boundary has been violated. That invisible force field, it often, you know, isn't there anymore. And so it's our frame. I like to call it our frame. So when we're brought into this world as cheeky little cherubs, we have our own little baby frame, and we live within our frame of, you know, our own energy resides right here, you know, when we kind of know where, or we learn where we begin and other people, where we end and other people begin, I guess is what I say. When we end and someone else begins, and there's that natural separation, even though we're all connected in a divine sense, we mentioned that, but there's like it's just not there anymore often when we've experienced trauma. And so we're kind of ripped out of our frames. And this is often what we have, you know, often why we get into other people's frames. So I even went downstairs and got this. So this is for me, it was a return to the frame. And I've been working on this most of my adult life, and it's still a work in progress. And so we kind of have to really make it a priority to return to our frame, because all that stuff happened out of our control when we were little kids, right? So now it's kind of like we can't do what we don't know, right? We can't do what we don't know, but once we become aware, we become responsible. Dr. Dave, one of my faves in the world, says that, and it's so true, because once we become aware, like, wow, that is me. I've been living in other people's frames. And so basically, when we're living in other people's frames, that's all the people pleasing and rescuing, and we are like living in their frames. If I had another person here, I would kind of go like that in their face, and maybe it's your partner, your parents, randos, because that is very true with codependency, randos at work, or even strangers on the street, and you're jumping into that stranger's frame you don't even know and you may never see again, and then all of a sudden that person says something, and what they think of you is more important than what you think of you. Obviously ridiculous, though we're not judging, because those of us who have been ripped out of our frames, what we definitely do not need is judgment of the self, saying, oh, there I go again. You know, I'm so codependent, I just can't stand myself, I can't stand when I do that. That's not what we need. That just, like, feeds the, you know, living in other people's frames situation. So when we catch ourselves in a people-pleasing moment, even if it's just silent, like, it might just be that you silently realize that somebody said something at work, they don't even know, and it wasn't even horrible. But all of a sudden you get locked into whether they liked your project or not. Okay, if they do, great. If they don't, who cares? All right? And I'm pretty good about being in my frame now. I mean, I kind of reside there, and still I catch myself. I caught myself just recently, last week, you know, with something work related, and somebody it was something so small. Just didn't like something. It was so minor. It wasn't, and they weren't snarky or anything. It was such a small little thing. And I was like, oh no, they don't like my newsletter or whatever it was. And I'm just like, and then I'm like, wait, regroup, who cares? And the thing is, realistically, when I've got a newsletter called The Mindful Times, which is so much fun, and the high majority get all kinds of great feedback. And obviously, when something is that exposed, and you know, you've got, like, let's say, because I've got a bunch of mail, let's say like 1,000 people seeing it, that's a high bar to think 1,000 people want to stay subscribed. This is just my example. It's obviously ridiculous. When you're that exposed, you can have 3 or 4 or 5 people who just for whatever reason, are too busy, or it doesn't even mean they don't like it. Maybe they don't like it, and who cares with that also. Maybe they're just too busy, or maybe they're overstimulated, and they would just want one less thing in their inbox. Like, yeah, totally understand. Because there are so many emails I ignore on a daily basis. Like, I get that. And still, I caught myself for just a minute, just a minute, like, oh, and then I'm like, okay, that's all right, because it literally isn't anything anybody would want to strive for or possible to please everybody. And again, it's not personal. It doesn't necessarily have to do with you at all. It didn't have to do with my newsletter at all. Like I said, I have plenty of things I ignore too, and it's not personal with whoever's sending them. It's just I don't choose to spend my life minutes reading whatever digest that somehow I landed on that list. No, and I totally understand. But I had a minute of that where I kind of almost left my frame. So here's a frame. I didn't actually leave my frame, but I was kind of like, you know what I mean? And I had to push myself back in my frame to, I don't need anybody's approval, only my own, and that's it. And if people are too busy for it, who cares? Doesn't matter, just like I'm too busy for other things. And I had to remind myself of that. So once we get conscious of it, here's the thing. Once you get conscious of the occasional leaves from your frame and you jump into somebody else's frame, and you might be, if you're just starting out, you might be like residing in somebody's frame, a partner or something, because you're just starting on the journey, and it's habitual, and that's what you've been used to, is getting that dope fix, okay, of somebody else's approval, and that taking over your own approval of yourself. And what you do with that, again, rather than get all full of self-judgment, oh my gosh, there I go again, I can't believe I just saw this YouTube and now I realize that's me, and oh my God, I'm so codependent, I'm a rescuer, I'm a people pleaser, blah, 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 blah. No, that's when you say, good for me, I caught myself. I caught myself doing that, be somebody's everything, run myself in the ground, get approval thing. I realized I caught myself caring about that person's approval over something ridiculous, and good for me that I caught myself. That means I am on the path. I am on the path to authenticity and live in the highest vibration of myself. It is so good. It is so good to be living your best life. And the thing is, once you kind of get along the path a ways and you kind of reflect on that, you're like, wow, have I come a long way. Like if that person said whatever they said to me today, 5 years ago or whatever, that would have leveled me and flattened me and wrecked. I would have allowed it to wreck my whole day. Now, I can pull myself back together, taking an adult time out, seeking higher ground with a safe person in my life, and bounce it off of them for 2 minutes, and go right back into my work day and be fine. Because I am now in my own frame, realizing that my own approval is all that matters. And that is it. Return to your frame, reside in your frame, and also realize that these videos are not meant to replace professional treatment. Okay, a little disclaimer. So return to your frame, reside in your frame, even if you do like this, all right, or like this. So what? Catch yourself and come back right to the center. Center yourself by seeking higher ground, processing with someone safe, return to right there, and realize the only approval you need on this earth is your own. That's it. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from within a picture frame in my living room in Northern Vermont. Have a mindful, mindful day.